Hello, everybody, and welcome into today's episode of Around the Slice. After a long beginning of summer break, I am finally back for you guys today, and of course, every single week going forward. A couple reasons why I had to take a break. Number one, just to be totally honest with you guys, in the dog days of summer, it's kind of really hard, not really hard, but it's kind of hard to come up with, consistent topics for your audience. And number two, I had some personal stuff come up recently that I had to take care of, but that's all good to go and taken care of. So, of course, as mentioned before, I'm back today, and I'm really excited to bring you guys this little mini series over the next couple weeks. If you were here last summer, welcome back. We did this as well. If you're here for the first time this summer going forward, I appreciate you, and I will explain what we're doing. We are doing AFC East preview / roster. Well, let me start over. We are doing AFC East roster comps, comparing the Buffalo Bills to the rest of the AFC East on offense and defense. Today we'll tackle offense. Today we'll tackle defense. For today specific, or next week we'll tackle defense. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Today specifically, we'll compare the Bills' offensive roster, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, etc., to the Jets, Dolphins, and Patriots respectively. And my scale is this. I will give each position a numerical score, starters and bench, how I think on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being terrible, 2 being below average, 3 being average, 4 being great, 5 being elite, obviously. Perfect 5 means you're elite, and so on and so forth. Anything in between that, we'll get to that if/when we cross that bridge. So and then at the end, for fun, I added up all the scores, and 5-10. On offense, there were 6 positions: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, offensive line. So actually, it's 5 positions. But I added up all the scores. 5 times 5, I have a possible 25 points. We'll see how they grade out in the AFC East offensive compared to one another. Fun couple weeks here. So, starting with QB, this is pretty straightforward. Number 1 is the Buffalo Bills. We have Josh Allen coming off an MVP season. Was it the most historically, stats-driven season in the history of mankind? No. But was it one of the most efficient seasons? Yes. Because Josh Allen only had a negative style play on 4.2% of passes, which means a turnover, interception, fumble, sack, lowest negative worthy play percentage in NFL history, I think it was. So, I mean, that's just incredible. So, I'm going to give this position a perfect 5. Whether the backup's Mitch Trubisky, I'm penciling in Mitch Trubisky for now. Whether it's Mike White, hell, it could be Shane Buechele. I don't care if it's me or you back there. It's Josh Allen. This is getting a perfect 5. Nothing really to say. Hopefully he can compete as MVP, but he's gonna have to pass for 4,500 plus yards, 40 to 45 plus touchdowns, and a handful of rushing touchdowns. Because you're competing with other statistically better QBs, unfortunately. So I'm giving this a perfect 5. It could be me and you back there, backing up Mr. Trubisky, or backing up Josh Allen. Who the hell cares? It's Josh Allen. Perfect 5. Number 2, the Miami Dolphins. We're looking at, unfortunately, at this point of his career, injury-prone, concussion-prone, Tua Tagovailoa as starter. I'll say this. I've never been a believer in Tua, but when he's perfectly healthy, you can do much worse. The problem with me is, though, he cracks under pressure. And this is not a biased thing. Any non-biased, non-Dolphins, if you're not a delusional Dolphins fan, will tell you this. He cracks under pressure. If everything's not going right, if Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, even Jonnu Smith from last year aren't perfectly open, and the first read isn't there for Tua, and he has to scramble around the pocket, make something happen with his legs, which he doesn't do at all, then he kind of crumbles. If the first read is open, if the Mike McDaniel system, if you will, isn't perfect, he kind of crumbles. So we have Tua, above average starter. I'll give him that. I don't think much of the backups here, though. Quinn Ewers, disappointing college career, an injury-prone college career. No wonder he fell to the 7th round. I know he went to Texas, but still. And Zach Wilson, his QB3 caliber at this point. I mean, I don't really think anyone's really scared of him, not even close. So I'm going to give this a 3.5, and this is really being held up by Tua. What's holding it back from being better is what I just explained with Tua, the correcting under pressure thing. Everything has to be perfect. And then whoever's the backup here, Quinn Ewers or Zach Wilson, I don't think much of them at all. So perfectly, above average, give or take. Yeah, perfectly above average Miami Dolphins QB room, 3.5 out of 5. 3, the New York Jets. I really like, so the two guys here are Justin Fields and Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor, I think, will retire after the season because number 1, he's a free agent. And number 2, I don't think he wants to go anywhere else. And number 3, I don't think Jets really have interest to pick it back. But Tyrod Taylor is a good, serviceable, really good backup. Obviously, a wealth of knowledge, came into the league with Buffalo, actually with the Bills. Problem, you don't want him to be a starter, but heaven forbid if you're the 500 rule, right? If your starter's injured for 4 games, can Tyrod go 2-2? If your starter's injured for, let's say, 2 games, can he go 1-1? Absolutely, I think he can. And Justin Fields, I'm not a hater like other people are. Oh, Justin Fields has many opportunities of going into year 5 in the league. Guys, did you look what he had in Chicago? He had Matt Nagy for a couple of years, fired. Matt Eberflus for a couple of years, fired. Last year in Pittsburgh, I love Mike Tomlin, but I think he got shafted. What excites you about Russell Wilson at all? Why did you have to bench him? Fields went 4-2 as a starter. You lost 2 games and you freak out. I don't understand. It's much more fun and exciting to watch Justin Fields. So I think they should have re-signed Justin Fields instead of signing stupid old Aaron Rodgers. Not stupid, but like stupid in the sense that their decision making was stupid. So this combination of Justin Fields and Tyrod Taylor, now I'm going to give them a 3.25, and most people would probably give it a 2.75, maybe even 3, just because people are really down on Justin Fields, and I really like Tyrod Taylor as a backup to mentor Justin Fields for the next 2 years, probably 1 year before he retires. And I'm really high, not really high, but I'll say I'm really high, much higher on Justin Fields than majority of public perception in the fantasy community at large as a whole. So I'm going to give the New York Jets combo of Justin Fields and Tyrod Taylor a 3.25. Unfortunately, Jordan Travis isn't here anymore as a developmental QB3 because the whole medically retired thing. New England Patriots, I'm also going to give this a 3.25. I saw a lot of good flashes from Drake May last year, where I saw a lot of good flashes from Drake May last year where he's surprisingly very athletic. He can use his legs. And the fact that he did anything last year with that horrible supporting cast, historically horrible offensive line, a lame duck head coach in Gerard Mayo, who doesn't even have a job right now, throwing his players under the bus every 2 freaking seconds. What an idiot. But anyway, I'm going to give this a 3.25, same as the Jets. I think Drake May and Justin Fields are comparable. Obviously, Justin Fields is uber athletic, but Drake May is not uber athletic, but he has sneaky upside as a rusher. And Josh Dobbs is the backup here. I look at him and Tyrod Taylor, same ilk, same vein, if you will. Very similar. Can he get you by? We saw him in Minnesota with Kevin O'Connell. Now, yes, that was just KOC's system. He is a true QB whisperer, but still, he's shown flashes in his career. He's a good, steady veteran. So Jets and Patriots both get a 3.25 for me. I technically have the Jets at 3 just because Justin Fields has shown more flashes than the league. Obviously, we just saw 1 year from Drake May, but I think both of these guys, Fields and May respectively, can make huge jumps in the league. So there's that. Next, we go to running back. Buffalo Bills. This is always going to get a very high mark for me. The trio, this is arguably the best. Now, obviously, there's better single running backs out there than James Cook, but top to bottom, 1 through 3, 1, 2, and 3, however you want to frame it as, I think this arguably maybe is the best, lethal 1 through 3 in the league. You got James Cook for the hyper athletic, explosive. Once he gets in the open field, he's gone. And then you got Ray Davis, who showed more than I expected as a rookie. I really liked him. And if James Cook leaves in free agency, which I'm kind of expecting at this point after the season, Ray Davis, boom, maybe he's in a 1A, 1B situation, or maybe he's the lead back. And then 3, Ty Johnson. Oh, the whole league would love to have Ty Johnson as an RB3. He's an elite special teamer. He's kind of a combo of James Cook and Ray Davis, right? Where James Cook is the explosive, get out in the open field guy, touted for his receiving ability, and then Ray Davis is the goal line thumper between the tackles bruiser. Ty Johnson is a combo that he can catch the ball, he can run between the tackles, he can run outside zone very well. He doesn't do anything great, but he does everything at a good and efficient level, and I think he's an underrated pass blocker and receiving back as well. So I'm going to give this group very high mark, a 4.5, just because I love James Cook. Obviously, we can enjoy him for one more season. Contract aside, we're just talking about caliber of player. And I love the depth. I'm so high on Ray Davis for now and the future. I'm so high on Ty Johnson as an RB3. And we got him back at a cheap contract. 4.5, boom, there you go. 2, New York Jets. I'm still in on Breece Hall, guys. I don't know where this hive mind of people like hating Breece Hall came from. And the depth here, is really exciting as well. Braylon Allen. I think, I know people are down on Breece Hall for fantasy, especially because Aaron Glenn said he's going to use a committee. Then Breece Hall was kind of upset about that. He thinks it's a 3-down back. Could Breece Hall be traded? For now, technically, he is on the New York Jets, so that's how we're going to look at it as. I'm still very in on Breece Hall. Braylon Allen is a really good RB2. Now, Isaiah Davis is an RB3, very good special teamer, very good goal line back, underrated receiving ability. I really love Breece Hall. I think people are sleeping on him. If you're looking for a post-life sleeper for fantasy, I think that could be one option. And then Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis provide really good to great depth. I'm going to give this a 4. I know people say, whoa, Aiden, that's way too high. Breece Hall had a down season. Again, I still really like Breece Hall. I think people are underrating this offense built around Justin. Garrett Wilson, obviously, all-pro Garrett Wilson, we know that. People are underrating Justin Fields, I feel. People are vastly underrating Breece Hall. His first 2 years in the league, Breece Hall was terrific. And then last year, he just wasn't as explosive. But I think he could have a real bounce back. And if it is a true committee, hey, he'll leave after this year and go to like Dallas or something where he can be the guy, the lead back. But right now, on the Jets, Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis. I would prefer the Bills 1 through 3 a little more. But this depth here is still really good. So I give the Bills a 4.5. I'm going to give the Jets just a tick below that at a 4 because I'm still very much in on Breece Hall, fantasy aside for real life as well. Number 2, Dolphins. I like Devon Achane, I really like Devon Achane a lot. Obviously, him and Gibbs, if you talk about explosiveness, Jahmyr Gibbs and Devon Achane are arguably 1 and 2 in the league. Not really close. Well, it's close, but they're 1 and 2. I worry about his frail frame. He's 185, 190 pounds, and Mike McDaniel gives him a ton of volume. He had 203 carries last year. Mike McDaniel gave him a ton of goal line carries inside the 5, at the 1, a ton of red zone opportunities. And I don't think he can handle that volume. So how he will hold up for the future and his staying power in the league, I don't know. But for right now, I feel like Devon Achane is someone I really like. But this depth behind him, I don't really like. Sorry to say. Like Jalen Wright, like Dylan Sampson was, I know they were a year apart, but Dylan Sampson was clear in a way the better Tennessee volunteer back, in my opinion. Jalen Wright, he's fine. Ollie Gordon, I think, can overtake Jalen Wright. But, these last 3, backup 3 running backs here, Jalen Wright, Ollie Gordon, Alexander Madison, who cares about him at this point? They're all same type of bruiser backs. For Devon Achane, your explosive, get out in space back, just like the James Cook corollary. And Wright, Gordon, Alexander Madison. I like Devon Achane, but I don't think much of this depth at all. So I'm going to give this a 3.75. People might think that's way too low and give it a 4.25, pushing 4.5, somewhere around there. But I can't give it a 4.5 like they give the Bills. Like Devon Achane is probably just a bit better than James Cook, but still, or at least comparable. But this depth is way worse, in my opinion, than the Bills. So I give this a 3.75 just because I really like Devon Achane, but this depth here, not very good, in my opinion, and very, very unproven. And Alexander Madison is just a throwaway piece. Who cares? New England Patriots. Ramondre Stevenson, obviously they drafted Travion Henderson. Travion Henderson is going to be your explosive back, get out in space. Notice how each team in the AFC East, other than the Jets with Breece Hall, not being an explosive get out in space back, but each team in the AFC East besides the Jets has a dubbed explosive get out in space back. Bills with James Cook, Dolphins with Devon Achane, and now the Patriots with Travion Henderson, who he's not going to garner a lot of value. A lot of the goal line carries very well might go to Ramondre Stevenson. I still think Ramondre Stevenson is an underrated piece. I mean, they just extended him last summer for 2 or 3 year, pretty sizable deal, $9 million per year for running back. pretty sizable. I really like this 1-2 punch from Ramondre Stevenson and Travion Henderson. But then if you get to RB3, who fumbles a lot, you get to Antonio Gibson at RB4, Travion Williams. I don't think much of those two behind Stevenson and Travion Henderson, but I love the explosive of Travion Henderson. I still like the bruising, underrated receiving ability of Ramondre Stevenson. So I'm going to give this a 3.25 with a bit ability, upside to go up from here. Maybe next year it's going to be a 3.75 if Ramondre bounces back with some goal line carries, if Travion Henderson, proves himself as a rookie, which I'm fully expecting him to do. So tentatively for now, 3.25 for the Patriots RB room. Moving on to, but that's all above average to good to great RB rooms for the AFC East. Wide receiver, I think this, as much as I say two of this, two of that, Devon Achane, depth at running back, blah, 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 I think the Dolphins clearing away have the best wide receiver room in this division. I'll talk about the Jets. I think collectively they have the best room, the Dolphins, that is, respectively, but the Jets have the best single player in Garrett Wilson. But I'm going to give the Miami Dolphins a 4.25. Obviously, the main story here is Tyreek Hill, who I think clearly lost some speed last year and is on the downslide of his career, because without speed, he's kind of just eh. And then Jalen Waddle, who I think is in for a big post-hype sleeper fantasy season, but also from a real-life perspective, I think he should and will garner more targets. I think that if Mike McDaniel's fighting for his job, if Mike McDaniel's fighting for his job, I think he'll open the playbook more. That means less little gimmicky dump offs for Devon Achane and guys like Jonnu Smith, and more downfield production for hopefully Jalen Waddle. So the main two big story here is obviously Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. And then Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, he's a guy last year. He had 7 straight games with a touchdown. He'll have 3 catches, but 2 touchdowns. 2 catches, 1 touchdown. It is so weird, but I think obviously he's a wide receiver 3/4 in Miami. He's there for just blocking. Everyone criticized, including myself. AFC East fan base has made fun of it, including myself again. The physicality, they're a soft team, and yes, they were. But with the additions they made on the offensive line with the guards and maulers there, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine is going to be a big part of that outside zone rushing attack that's so lethal with Devon Achane. And then, the likely slot guy here is Malik Washington, who showed some flashes last year. And if Tyreek Hill moves on after this year, which again, he's still going to be under contract, he's not free agent until 2027 offseason, so March of 27. But if he moves on for this year, which I'm fully expecting him to, Jalen Waddle and Malik Washington could be the pair going forward. Yeah, Malik Washington's kind of undersized, but I expect him to be the main slot target for Tua. And Tua, if he doesn't get those first read options with Waddle and Hill, and those dump offs of Smith and Achane, he's going to need those easy slot receptions from Malik Washington. And then we have some depth here with Taj Washington, D. Eskridge, and Eric Izukama. The only guy here that really perks my interest, if you will. It's not a ton, but Taj Washington, he basically had a redshirt year as a rookie last year. He was basically on IR all year, never really activated. But I still really like him as a size, speed, downfield, special teams guy. I don't know. I really liked him out of USC. I thought he was an underrated prospect. So a couple guys here. Malik Washington showing some flashes. Taj Washington, who I really liked as a pre-draft prospect. So, but obviously the main story here is Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. I believe last year I gave this a perfect 5, but we did see a slight dip from a lot dip from Tyreek Hill's speed. And Jalen Waddle, took a dip in targets, but I expect him to bounce back. So if Jalen Waddle bounces back, if Tyreek Hill shows that last year was just a fluke at the 2 concussion stuff, this could go back up to a 4.5 or damn near pushing 4.755. But I'm going to give this a 4.25 for now, just because behind Waddle and Hill, I don't know how much proven stuff you have. I like Malik Washington as a future slot target, showed some flashes, but not really proven. I like Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, but in this offense, he's not going to be the wide receiver 2, even 1 at times over Calvin Ridley like he was in Tennessee. He's going to be the wide receiver 4. So 4.25 for that. Number 2, New York Jets. I just said the biggest, group, the best group, obviously, with the 4.25 was the Miami Dolphins, but the best single player here, in my opinion, is Garrett Wilson. You have Garrett Wilson. He's a superstar. I mean, he's been able to produce with murderous row quarterbacks like Zach Wills. I don't know the order here, but Zach Wilson, Mike White, Yolo Bozo, Joe Flacco, whoever the hell is out there. I could be out there. You could be out there. Anyone in your family could be out there. And Garrett Wilson would still produce. But outside of Garrett Wilson, like, I gave this a 3.75 just because Garrett Wilson holds this up, like 100% held up by Garrett Wilson. Outside of this, like, you have these two veterans and Alan Lazard, who you want to be your wide receiver 3/4, who has major drop issues. Josh Reynolds, same thing, wide receiver 4/5, big body, downfield threat occasionally, special teams glue guy. Think of Matt Collins type. And then you have this rookie in Arian Smith, who can't really run routes, is a screen merchant kind of, and can only do one thing with downfield speed, and he doesn't really separate, and he's kind of undersized. I thought he was overdrafted. And then you have this really nice return guy who I actually really like in Xavier Gibson, but again, not a volume guy. And then Malachi Corley and Tyler Johnson are probably going to be fighting for spots. I mean, Malachi Corley had that stupid mistake last year where he dropped in the end zone. It amazes me to this day that players still do that crap. Like, you celebrate before that end zone. Like, what? Come on. Get in the end zone, then do that. Or just don't at all. So I give this a 3.75 solely because of Garrett Wilson. I don't think much of this at all. I'm probably overrating this group because of Garrett Wilson, but still, I love Garrett Wilson, so it's my list, so I did it anyway. Number 3, Buffalo Bills. So obviously, your main guy who's going to garner a ton of targets on a week, not a ton, but like, if there's someone that could garner double-digit targets on a weekly basis for this offense, it is absolutely Khalil Shakir. Don't hear what I'm not saying here, whatever that phrase is, but this is no slight or knock against Khalil Shakir himself. But Khalil Shakir is the wide receiver 1 for the Buffalo Bills. On a lot of other teams, ideally he'd be wide receiver 2 or 3. No knock. He just works for the scheme very well. And I think Khalil Shakir could even evolve. That's crazy. Aiden, he's had production for 2 years now. But underrated ability of his is speed and dynamicism, whatever that word is. I can't even pronounce it. In downfield ability, I think slot targets like a bounce back from Dalton Kincaid, like a Josh Palmer with his route running, like a true X receiver with Keon Coleman. I think Khalil Shakir's downfield prowess, if you will, could be more on display. So I love Khalil Shakir. Slot merch. He's not a slot merch. He's a slot merchant in the best way possible. And then you have these two outside receivers in Keon Coleman and Josh Palmer. I like Keon Coleman. I don't love Keon Coleman. You know, what am I trying to say here? I feel like Keon Coleman is kind of divisive right now. And unfortunately, I fall on the side of the fence, if you will, where I'm kind of more skeptical of a true breakout more than other people are. Everyone's like, oh, yeah, Keon Coleman, 80 to 90 target season. I don't think he's touching near 90 targets, especially with after Khalil Shakir's everybody eats mantra. I think Josh Palmer could have very similar production for Keon Coleman. And if I'm being honest, I know Keon Coleman was the very first pick of the second round last year, but I love the free agent edition of Josh Palmer. And I think people are underrating him. People say, well, he never really produced. He only topped out at 500-something yards, 600-something yards in LA. Let's provide some context here, everybody. 3 out of 4 years, he had a different coordinator, and he was dealing with a lame duck head coach in Brandon Staley. 3 out of 4 years, he was dealing with, ahead of him, 2, at the time, all-pro caliber receivers like Hall of Famer and Keenan Allen and then Mike Williams. And then he was behind Ladd McConkey, who's just awesome last year as a rookie. So he can't really – and in a run-heavy offense with guys like over the years with Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, Greg Roman, and Jim Harbaugh, especially last year, loved to run the football. So I think he had to get out of there, and I think he could be the wide receiver, quote-unquote. I know this team doesn't label guys after Khalil Shakir, but for me, wide receiver 2 after – Khalil Shakir, I'm just a bit more skeptical, if you will, on a Keon Coleman breakout. I like Josh Palmer, honestly, more. And then you have this clump of 2 guys here with Curtis Samuel, who's unfortunately last year was just a gadget guy. But in the playoffs against the Broncos, we were already going to win regardless. But the death nail was that deep bomb from Josh Allen to Curtis Samuel. So he showed up big there. And then Elijah Moore here, we'll see. He had a underrated, obviously in 2021, that rookie class was, in terms of wide receivers at least, Devontae Smith, and Jalen Waddle. And those are the marquee names, and no one really talked about Elijah Moore. I was like, this guy had a really underrated rookie season back then, but he hasn't really figured it out. The argument for him having a breakout finally in year 5, yeah, I think so. Year 5 in the NFL this upcoming year would be he had all those Browns quarterbacks, starting with Deshaun Watson, all those other guys, and then the Jets quarterbacks as well. This might be a bold take. I might do a whole bold take / spicy take / hot takes, whatever I want to call it, episode as we get closer to season, July, August, whatever. But that could be fun. But my bold take right now is one of Curtis Samuel or Elijah Moore are not going to make this team. And the only way to get out of Curtis Samuel's contract without a huge dead cap hit would be trading him. I don't know how much trade interest he would have. Elijah Moore cutting him. He only had a $2.5 million guaranteed contract, up to $5 million. Who cares? It's like an MVS situation, but slightly better. So my bold take right now is one of Curtis Samuel or Elijah Moore doesn't make this team. And then you have this big clump of depth with fighting for last couple of roster spots with Laviska Shenault, who's going to make this team for his return ability. I'm not counting on it. And then you have these 3 special teams aces and Caden Prather, I guess KJ Hamler, Jalen Virgil, who has size and speed for that, and Tyrell Shaver, same thing. And like that's what he was known for coming out of college. So outside of Khalil Shakir, there's no really known commodities here. I am hyped for Josh Palmer, a little more timid on the Ken Coleman quote-unquote breakout than everyone else is. So I'm going to give this a 3.5. Last year, I give it a 3.25 because I really like Josh Palmer as an addition here. And Elijah Moore can maybe be a diamond in the rough if he makes the team. So 3.5 for that. And then 4, New England Patriots. I think people are overrating. Like, this is no hate. Like, I know he treated Buffalo bad. I know he treated us bad. I know he treated Josh Allen bad. I'm not saying that I hate Stefon Diggs now. I think people are overrating how good he is still. People act like he's still this true alpha number 1 receiver. And I think he's more suited for a number 2 role, like he was last year before he got injured behind Nico Collins in Houston with CJ Stroud. Well, before they all got injured, frankly, for that matter. But you have Stefon Diggs. In a perfect world, he's your number 2 wide receiver. But for this team, is number 1. Fine, whatever. For Matt Collins, he's your wide receiver 2 here. Your only other proven guy, really. And ideally, you want him as your wide receiver 4 guy. Think of a Josh Reynolds type. Think of a Tim Patrick type. You don't want Matt Collins being your wide receiver 2 or 3. You're in a bad spot, which the Patriots are with their wide receiver core if he's that. And then you have Kyle Williams, who I'm really, really excited about out of the draft. I think he could be really, really impressive. I think he could be the wide receiver 2 right away. But that's what I'm saying. If an unproven 4th round rookie out of Washington State, of all places, who aren't even the Pac-12 anymore, Pac-2 or whatever the heck they call it, then yeah, that's an issue. And then you have this mix of depth with Pop Douglas, Kayshon Boutte, whatever his name is, Kendrick Bourne, who I find it very unlikely to make the team, and Efton Chisholm is an undrafted guy out of Eastern Washington, same school as Cooper Kupp, fun fact. And then you have these 2 rookies who did absolutely nothing, a combined 87 yards. I think Javon Baker had 1 catch in the year, and Jalen Polk had 2 catches in the year. I think Javon Baker's 1 catch on the year total came in that stupid, meaningless Week 18 game against the Bills, where Joe Milton was just apparently throwing bombs all over the place. Good for him. Now he's in the Cowboys. Yippee. Okay. Anyway, I don't think this is a bold take, but maybe because Polk was a 3rd round pick and Javon Baker, was a 4th round pick, respectively. New regime with Mike Vrabel, still the same de facto GM, president, whatever he is, player personnel. I have no idea what his actual title is. And Elliott Wolf. I don't think Baker and Polk make the team. Like, one of them isn't going to make the team. And arguably their most impressive receiver last year was Kayshon Boutte. So one of Baker or Polk, I'm like 90% sure isn't making this team. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9 guys, and teams only carry 5, 6, or 7 receivers. I think the Patriots number is 6 because they're going to want that blocking from guys like Matt Collins and Kendrick Bourne if he can make the team. I would like to flip him. If you get a 6th or 7th round pick, who cares? He's torn his ACL a couple of times in his career. He's not that young anymore. So I'm giving this a 3. I think it's perfectly average. Stefon Diggs, I think people are overrating him. Oh, he's an alpha number 1. Yeah, for this team he is, but ideally in a perfect world he's not. And Matt Collins, if he's your wide receiver 2 or 3, you're in a bad spot. Ideally you want him 4. And then you have a bunch of unproven nothing. And with Javon Baker and Jalen Polk, I literally mean nothing because they did nothing last year. So 3 for that. The definition of mediocre and average, in my opinion. Tight end for the Buffalo Bills. I'm going to be honest with you. Dalton Kincaid here, really disappointing season. I know you can look at the metrics and tell me that Josh Allen, Dalton Kincaid had the lowest catchable target rate out of all tight ends in the league. Okay, fine. But did Dalton Kincaid ever take over a game? No. Did Dalton Kincaid separate very well last year or run his routes very well last year? No. This stupid two tight end crap that they thought they were drafting Dalton Kincaid for, the whole 12 personnel, that's been a complete disaster with Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox, so let's not do that again. I'm going to be honest with you, though. I'm more in on a Dalton Kincaid, like bounce back, breakout, whatever you want to call it, more than Keon Coleman. Like, I'll say, I think Dalton Kincaid gets more targets than Keon Coleman. I don't know about more touchdowns because Coleman's a big red zone threat, but more targets, certainly more yards and reception. And then Dawson Knox is a tight end too. Yes, he's an overpaid tight end too. I think ideally you want him in that $7 to $8 million contract, just like the Vikings gave Josh Oliver a couple weeks ago, rather. So yeah. And then your tight end 3 is Jackson Hawes, who I didn't see Quentin Morris go, but this is a guy, a fantastic rookie-controlled 4-year contract, a fantastic blocker. He's just not going to give you anything in the receiving game. But you have hopefully your big bounce back candidate in Dalton Kincaid, who I'm very much in on still. You have Dawson Knox, who's an overpaid tight end too, but a proven tight end too in the league. And then Jackson Hawes, who will put you on your ass as a blocker. So I'm going to give this a 3.75. Just mainly because I'm really in on Dalton Kincaid. I just don't like Dawson Knox being overpaid that much. Miami Dolphins, obviously Jonnu Smith last year, big production. But if you look last year, his ADOT per the Fantasy Points Data Suite, which is an amazing resource for Brett Whitefield and his team over there, per the Fantasy Points Data Suite, Jonnu Smith, Dolphins tight end last year, an ADOT of 4.5 or 4.9 or something around that range, and which means he got a lot of dumps off and checkdowns, just like Devon Achane. He had to have manufactured touches because Snoop Huntley was starting. Skylar Thompson was starting for a couple of games. It was a disaster. But beyond Jonnu Smith, I'm not expecting to have another high-level productive year like last year and getting nearly enough cheap targets for that. And then this depth of Pharaoh Brown, Julian Hill, Jalen Conyers, who I actually like enough as a UDFA fine, and Tanner Connor, I don't believe in his depth at all. So I'm going to give this a 3.5. And people are saying, well, Aiden, Jonnu Smith last year, production. Well, if you look, he got a lot of cheap targets, like I just told you, with the whole ADOT, the whole yak, run after catch. He had absurdly high yak. Is that going to repeat this year? In my opinion, no. So I'm going to give Dolphins tight end room because of Jonnu Smith mainly a 3.5. And Pharaoh Brown's a really good blocker. And Julian Hill is a nice third tight end, I guess. Nice enough, good enough. But 3.5. And then 3 for the New England Patriots. I'm also going to give this a 3.5. Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith. Hunter Henry has always been reliable his whole career, and I feel has always been underrated in his career, whether it was with the Chargers, whether handful last few years now with the Patriots. Going to be a guy that really grows with Drake May. I know he's like 30, 31 now, but who cares? He's always going to give you 500-600 yards. He's always going to give you 4 or 5 touchdowns per year. Going to be a really good end zone target, really good red zone target. Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith are comparable to me, but the edge here, I think, well, I gave him the same grade, so I guess not the edge, but I do like Austin Hooper as a tight end too more than anything else the Dolphins have currently going into this season. And then Jaheim Bell, I know he's a running back, fullback, halfback, slot wide receiver, inline tight end, whatever he is, move him around as a chess piece, I guess. We'll see. And then CJ Dupree could unseat him out of Alabama, who I think was a really nice blocking tight end. He can play fullback as well. So I'm going to give it a 3.5. Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith are comparable to me, but I do like Austin Hooper more as a tight end too than anything the Miami Dolphins have currently going into this season. Then number 4 with the New York Jets. So they have Mason Taylor, who I'm really high on. The only thing is Justin Fields, if you look at some fantasy metrics out there in the Fantasy Points Data Suite, Justin Fields doesn't really – he's not – number one, he's not a check down guy. And number two, he doesn't really throw to the middle of the field. If his first, second, or third read isn't there, really, first read, honestly, isn't there, he's taking off and scrambling with his legs. And number two, he doesn't throw in the middle of the field because he's a downfield passer, strong as hell. I'm not how to phrase this. Strong arm, like very strong arm. So he doesn't really pass them in the middle of the field. That's my only reservation with these tight ends and leading Mason Taylor. And then Jeremy Rucker, I like as a tight end too. I really liked him at Ohio State pairing with Cade Stover. I believe they were a year apart, but going into year 3, if it was going to happen for Jeremy Rucker, it would have happened by now. So, yeah. And then Stone Smart, who I really like, if he's your tight end 2 or 3, he showed last year that he has some, like, he's an excellent blocker, but he has some pretty untapped potential as a receiving threat up the seam through the middle of the field with the Chargers last year. And then as a tight end 4, Zach Kuntz, who's going to be a huge special teams guy for you, then, yeah, I think that's a really, really nice place to be. So I think Mason Taylor, I really like his rookie trajectory. Jeremy Rucker, I'm kind of down in him because, like I said, if it was going to happen, it would have already happened by now. And Stone Smart, a really young piece. Like, he's not nearly as old as you would think. So I'm going to give this a 3.25. But a lot of unproven here. The only proven veteran, if you will, is Stone Smart. But I love Mason Taylor's rookie trajectory. And that's where my faith comes from with the 3.25. Next, offensive line. I mean, you knew this was coming. The Buffalo Bills, perfect 5. From left tackle, Deion Dawkins, franchise cornerstone, left guard, David Edwards, and center, Connor McGovern. We'll see how those price tags work out after the season, but for now, there's sufficient level quality starters. Right guard, Cyrus Torrance, I'm saying he's a franchise cornerstone. He's going to get paid immensely. That doesn't make any sense. He's going to get paid a ton after this season. And then right tackle, Spencer Brown, franchise cornerstone. So, in my opinion, 3 of your 5 starters are franchise cornerstones. And then this depth is awesome. You have guard/center Alec Anderson as the jumbo tight end, utility blocker, center Cedric Van Pran-Granger, who I could easily envision him being the starting center for 2026 and beyond if/when McGovern moves on. And then you get this mix of Ryan Vandermark, Tylen Grable, Chase Lutton, Kendrick Green fighting for roster spots. And I really like the developmental path they're on. I think Aaron Cromer loves versatility with his bench guys and develops young guys really well. So you have an excellent starting 5, excellent depth, excellent bottom of the roster battles, perfect 5, obviously. And they've only missed 1 game, Spencer Brown against the Chiefs, over the last 2 years. So in 17 games times 2, in 34 regular season games, 1 guy has missed 1 game. That was Spencer Brown for a little injury thing. Jets. I think the floor here, I don't know about, but I think the ceiling here, whether it's rookies, second-year players on really nice trajectories, 5 starters quick. Left tackle, Olu Fashanu, who's like a can't-miss prospect last year out of Penn State. Left guard, John Simpson, who I think is a really underrated guard in the league. I don't think people talk about him enough. And center, Joe Tittman. I'm ready to say he's a franchise cornerstone already. And he also has guard center flex as well. He actually started at one of the guard spots his rookie year a couple years ago. And then right guard, Elijah Vera Tucker. He was finally healthy this year. If he's healthy, he's a mauler. He's just like torn his ACL/Achilles 3 different times. And then right tackle, Maris Mims. I think your ceiling lies in the tackle duo here of second-year player out of Penn State, Olu Fashanu at left tackle, and rookie, Maris Mims out of Missouri at right tackle. And then the depth here, I think, is underrated. Center Josh Myers. I was expecting him to get pretty handsomely paid as a center out of Green Bay. It's not a college. Coming off the Packers free agent, I expected him to get paid, but he goes to Jets for 1 year, or 2 years, $10 million, $5 million APY. And then guard/tackle, Max Mitchell. Offensive tackle, Carter Warren. We saw last year, unfortunately, Carter Warren's a disaster as a starter, but if he's your 6th or 7th or 8th offensive lineman, you're in really good shape. And then offensive tackle, Chuks Okorafor, who clearly him and Jerron Mayo. It's not surprising because a lot of players didn't get along with Jerron Mayo, it seems like. But from the very start, it was a strained relationship. And then guard, Xavier Newman, who is a veteran of the group. So I don't know how much proven there are with this tackle duo, but I really love it for the future. And then I think this depth is really underrated, and I love Josh Myers. This is an underrated piece. I'm going to give this a 4. Like, people would probably give it a 3.25, 3.5 just because of the unproven aspect with Fashanu and Mims, but I don't care. Like, I'm shooting for ceiling here, so I'm going to give it a 4. Number 3, in my opinion, best offensive line in the AFC East division, the New England Patriots. From last year, it was a total disaster. I talked about Drake Malish when we went over the QBs at the very beginning of today's episode of Run the Slice. Rewind if you didn't hear it, but I touched on how it was amazing, very extremely impressive how Drake May was able to do anything at all what he did with this horrible, like historically horrible, awful offensive line. But they raised the floor of this, in my opinion, and they raised the ceiling of this, in my opinion. So the left tackle, Will Campbell, number 4 overall pick out of LSU, franchise cornerstone there. Left guard, Cole Strange, who they're trying to bounce him between left guard and center. There were some rumors that he would play center because right after the retirement of David Andrews, but then just a couple weeks later, they brought in center Garrett Bradbury, who he's fine, I guess. And then right guard, Mike Onwenu, where I think he's been bouncing between right guard and right tackle on the right side of the offensive line last couple years, and his natural really good spot is right guard. And then right tackle, you have Morgan Moses. So you have floor here with, I think you have franchise cornerstones and Will Campbell and Mike Onwenu. We'll see with Cole Strange. Hopefully it finally comes together. Garrett Bradbury, I don't know. But, and then right tackle Morgan Moses. He's just been so good for so long. Obviously he's really old, 34 years old, but still. And then center Jared Wilson. Don't be surprised if he unseats, if you will, Garrett Bradbury. And then guard City So. All these guys, like City So, Vidarian Lowe, Caden Wallace, Layden Robinson, you don't want them as starters, but you upgrade the floor and ceiling of this offensive line, so now they move to the bench. And then last couple year, guard Tyrese Robinson, offensive tackle Demetrius Jacobs, who like literally was the worst right tackle I've ever seen in my life last year. Like, I don't know how many times he was on the ground. It was bad. So, yeah. I like the floor of this group. I like the ceiling of this group. I think they got a good mix of veterans, good mix of depth, and good mix of youth there. And a franchise left tackle with Will Campbell. I'm going to give this a 3.75. I think people are really underrating this offensive line. And Mike Onwenu is also a franchise cornerstone at right guard, which is by far his more natural position where he's very good at. And then number 4 with the Miami Dolphins. They added some physicality here. I still think it's a below average group. That's why I gave it a 2.75, which obviously per my scoring system is the definition of below average. But like left tackle Patrick Paul, we'll see. I'm expecting a big leap from him, but like after Toronto, I'm retired, but we got issues if he doesn't take a leap. Left guard James Daniels, who last year was injured with the Steelers, but early in his career, very impressive. Center Anna Brewer, who is arguably, I'll say it, he's the most underrated center in the league. He's not powerful, but he's very athletic. Right guard, Jonas Savanaia, who's just a mauler at Arizona. Right tackle, Austin Jackson, who for a tackle, he's very good in run support. He's been so up and down in his career. I think he had one really good year and then just ever since. But I think for your starters here, you have a good mix of youth with Paul and Austin Jackson and Jonas Savanaia. And then the 2 veterans in the middle with James Daniels at left guard and Aaron Brewer at center, who's very underrated. And then you look at this depth. Offensive line, Liam Eichenberg, they've tried him at tackle, they've tried him at guard, and most recently last year, they tried him at center, which he can literally just not snap the ball and save his life. So that I just, no. He can't play either spot well. But if these are 6th or 7th old linemen, then you're in a really good spot. Guard / tackle, Braden Daniels, we'll see, kind of fizzled out the Commanders. Offensive tackle, and then you have these 3 of like tackles and center, Keon Smith, Ryan Hayes, and Andrew Mayer, I think, isn't. And I forgot to mention guard / tackle Jackson Carman was a second-round bust with the Bengals. I'm not expecting much from him. You know, I don't really like the depth, but I think your floor and physicality with the veteran additions you made and the draft picks you made with youth, and Patrick Paul's pretty much a rookie draft pick. Technically his second year, but you get what I'm saying. I'm going to get to a 2.75. It's definitely below average, but can it be a 3 or 3.25 this time next year if Jonas Savanaia has a very good rookie year and Patrick Paul makes that leap like we're all, including myself, expecting? Yeah, I think it could be easily. So 2.75 there. Now the fun part. AFC East offensive roster grades 2024. Obviously, no one has a perfect roster, but a perfect roster score for me at least, my fun scoring scale and system would be a 25. 5 positions here: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, offensive line. A possible 5 points for each. 5 times 5 is 25. So out of a possible 25 points, the Bills still reign supreme here at 21.75. That's so damn good for everyone who says, oh, their roster, it fell off. But last year was a rebuild year. They're fine. Jets, pretty big dip here, 18.25 out of 25. Dolphins, 17.75. Patriots, 16.75. So the Bills are clearly on a pretty good trajectory to win this division for, crazy to say, but 6th year in a row. And then you have these guys who are just clumped, I guess, 2 through 4. Let me remind you again quick. Bills, 21.75. Jets, 18.25. Dolphins, 17.75. Patriots, 16.75. So if you're above a 20, you have like an elite roster. If you're above an 18, you have a great roster. I might be overrating the Jets roster a bit, but again, I'm really in Justin Fields and Breece Hall. The Bills are still Super Bowl contenders. I don't want to hear it. And this defense is overall next week for the Bills. A lot of defenses in this division were overall, lost some pieces in free agency, added some draft picks, all that fun stuff, all that jazz. So, yeah, there's my offensive roster comps comparing the Bills to the Jets, Dolphins, Patriots, respectively. And then the offensive grade shaked out like that. So, I'm back. This is really exciting. Next week, we'll go over the Bills defense compared to the rest of the Patriots, Jets, so on, Dolphins, AFC East defenses. So, you can follow me personally on Twitter at uweingartner13. You can follow the show on Twitter at Around Slice. You can, of course, watch or listen to this podcast on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. One last plug, I promise. Obviously, since March, I've been working with the crew over at Fantasy and Frames, covering the NFL. It's been awesome. Writing articles, going on the Dynasty show, going on the Redraft show. It's been awesome. So you can find all my written work over at fantasyandframes.com for them, or you can find my video work over at the Fantasy and Frames YouTube channel with all the live streams and fun shows with the crew over there. It's been awesome. So anyways, guys, without further ado, I will see you next week for the Bills AFC East defensive comps for the division. Continue to have a great summer as it starts on here. And we'll be back every week moving forward through the summer, and then 2 or 3 times a week, obviously, during the season. I really appreciate you guys for being here, and I'm really glad to be back. So, yeah, have a great day, and I'll see you next week.